So I think I handed everybody one of these papers. And before I go into that, I'm going to give a little backstory. That's always helpful. Backstory is I'm working on the revisions for Articles 1 through 6 for our zoning ordinances. So Plan Commission people are going to see this, all 9 pages of it, at our next meeting. I sent it out, so most of it, there's been a couple updates, but most of it's the same, which is good. But in that, if you look at the back side of this, which is actually going to be kind of like a definition, but it'll be part of Article 6, is when we talk about having a detached accessory dwelling unit. Hello.
Okay, sorry.
Very fine. We just started. So when we talk about having a detached accessory dwelling unit, it is something I want to put into this draft here that we have it. I've already worked on anyhow. And on the back, it'll say a second structure, single family residence. It allows for a second single family structure not connected to the primary structure that fits within the setback requirements for its zoning district on a single parcel that shall have independent water and sewer connections. This shall have a minimum of 600 square feet. 600 square feet is up for discussion, Planning Commission or this group, whoever, if you want to talk about that. But this was going to go into this. So what that means is not automatic. This would fall under special use. So the BZA would have to approve every case. So that sentence would effectively cover, I think, everything that has to do with, and want to call it detached accessory dwelling units. It's just a second structure. One example of this also is you'll see in some of the Amish communities, they'll build some of their houses close together. Mm-hmm. I mean, this would also allow that if that's what they chose to do or a family unit wanted to do. So that's the first thing I want to talk about is, since part of this bigger ordinance, I wanted to get that in it.
It's this part that you're wanting to talk about, the backside?
Yeah, just for now. I want to hear thoughts.
Well, one is still I think 600 square feet. What is your intent? Is it to help the person who wants to put something over their garage? 600 square feet is larger than it needs to be. I go back to my apartment above the cafe. That was 400. I lived in it for 14 years. It was nice. It was perfect. And 2 people would have been great. That was 400 square feet. But we've also talked about the separate sewer and water. Are you opening yourself up for down the road, the town getting sued if you force me to put sewer and water, a separate hookup, separate meter? Why can't I separate the property and divide the lot now? I just think you're kind of opening yourself up there.
Because of past history where they were allowed to connect together, and then people did split them off. They were allowed to split off and sell to 2 different residents, and they ended up having a problem for the town when 2 people owned the same thing where it was going to the same connections.
But was it because they built 2 houses on? Did they make 2 non-conforming lots then when they split? Or were they? Well, let's just use the Fisher lot as an example, because everybody knows the lot that I have for sale where Pam Fisher used to live on College next to Alan Wendy, right across from. It's 3 houses in from Lakeshore Drive. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. That's 159 foot. You and I have talked about 2 houses being built on that because it's large enough, and you said it doesn't, and it's always been allowed. This almost makes it sound like it's still not allowed, but you said it is allowed.
So in that case, you have a lot that's big enough to actually split into 2 lots, and you would have 2 houses on it. Somebody wanted to sell one house, they could split it.
But on the other ones, on a 50-foot lot, are you saying people have built on a? Okay, so if we split that, then it's not non-conforming.
You could still On that other property, you could still, you have to go through the plan commission. I think you could get 2 lots out of that easy. with the
Yes, you
plan
could.
commission.
But are you saying on these other properties, somehow somebody built 2 houses on a 50-foot lot or even a 75-foot lot and then split it and the town allowed it? Because that would have been creating 2 non-conforming lots.
Yes, I am saying exactly that it's happened. It's happened just a few, 2 or 3 blocks to the south of you, where there's a house that fills an entire parcel behind a house on South Main. I forgot what the cross street is there.
Then why would you allow them to split? I mean, why allow it?
You'd have to talk to the,
Okay, let me
plan commission why that happened in the
let
past.
me back this up. Or move this forward. Do you want to keep doing that? You're saying that we want to make them use a separate hookup because we break our own rules and let them split. Why don't we just follow the rules and say no and make it very clear when they build that second house of, you do realize that this can never be divided. You do realize that. I mean, and have them sign off on it as part of the building permit. It sounds like you're trying to create rules so when the town doesn't follow them, you're preparing for when we don't follow our own rules.
I understand what you're saying. I'm also trying to prepare for a proper rental unit that's gonna, if it's gonna be done at that time, a lot of times people are gonna have those people, their tenants on a separate system, so they're paying their own utilities. So it would be done.
Can I follow up? Because actually it's getting confusing. I wrote that down. This is too complex. Let's stay right now understanding an ADU. Let's not get to the other question of splitting of property. Right? 50-foot lot, 40-foot lot, or small ones. So I won't go to the minimum. I'll just go on that separate hookup. Requiring that, you just increase the construction cost significantly. So you're basically pretty much, I would say, limited the ability for anyone to do anything. Because I'm just going to cost of construction. Okay. That's a problem. So, and that if you are on a 50-foot lot, you're never going to split it. And it has nothing to do with whether your tenants are paying or not. That's on the landlord property owner. It has nothing to do with planning. It has nothing to do with construction. That is literally on the agreements between the owner and the tenant, however they distribute. They might not even say, you pay for this. It might be included in their rent number. Who knows? That's up to them. So, or it's a percentage of square footage of usage. That is up to the landlord owner, not the building or planning departments to regulate. Therefore, on these smaller lots, you cannot subdivide it. Therefore, why have a separate connection to the sewer and water, which is increasing the construction cost, which is making it less affordable to build? It's contradictory.
But we still need to put something there, because you take my house, I've got 2 lots. I could build something on 1 lot, connect them both, but 2 years down the road, decide I'm gonna split. So now
You
you're
could put it in, if you could put something in there, if you did something like that and you connected them, you would have to disconnect them and add a new line to it if you want to subdivide it and sell it. So you could do it at that period of time. But now if you're subdividing to create another parcel, then you are required to have a new connection. Okay, as an owner who's making money, selling the property, is that in your best interest of the capital of what you can sell it for? If so, you'll do it. If not, you won't do it.
Well, and
So that goes to the individual of property ownership.
going to that, I have a friend who has now I think this is going to the extreme, but to kind of say what you just did. But that's also a separate house on a separate lot. We're talking about 2 houses on 1 parcel. I have a friend who inherited a house in Minnesota. Family member died. Actually, her mother. And I find this amazing. And she really did research it. It's out in the country, house. She's inheriting it. She lived there with her mother. Her mother died. When a property changes in Minnesota, of a certain age, they are mandated, they have to put in a new septic, even though it's been inherited by a family member. So you could put stuff in that might seem to us like, that's bizarre. Why would we force them to hook us to? Well, why not? Why not say, if you sell and split it, and you have them tied to one septic or one sewer, you're going to be, as part of the sale, it has to.
Yeah.
And it comes in, it has to be, you just put it in your zoning.
To me, it's just so much cleaner. Let's just do it up front. We were
No.
talking about it's gonna happen. It's just do it up front.
No, I do. I disagree from professional experience. Again, I'm talking about multiple municipalities throughout this country that are doing that. That separate idea, and again, I'm going on capital of the world we inhabit today of cost of construction. You're limiting the units that can ever be built because
Are we wanting to do this to increase meter hookups?
No, I want to get back to that. Just say that again.
you're
Reducing the ability.
you're reducing the ability for those units to be built in this context specific to the ADUs, be very specific to the ADUs.
Remember, we're talking specifically right now, detached, not attached.
Yes, absolutely detached. Yes. The cost of that construction of that unit for the square footage to that cost of that new line coming in from the city of infrastructure costs will limit the amount of affordability for people to actually even do it.
What does it cost to hook up?
10,000 would be about 10,000 hookup,
No, it's that.
not less than 10,000.
Doesn't,
It does matter.
it does
It's a
matter.
big deal
It's a big deal.
So
I'm
it's
saying
not
I
that
look at
much.
all the costs.
relative to the cost of a new structure. It's not that much. It's not that big of a percentage relative to the cost of a new structure.
Again, you can say what you want. I'm out there building.
Well, I'm
residential.
going to, you are too.
Yeah, and I'm saying that all of this adds up to that cost of that construction,
So I think also when
and
you
it's not
need
necessary,
to understand, you have somebody who works for utilities sitting in the room right
Right.
now.
but it's not necessary. It's not
And
necessary.
you also have the experience of the utility department that's also saying the same thing. They want to see separate hookups for detached units
Why?
to avoid future problems.
But again, it's about
There's a
avoiding the future problem. It's not about the condition.
It
It's
is.
about it's about the future problem, not about the specific condition of that unit being built.
Okay, well,
It's called experience.
what's the problem?
It's not logical. It's
That
not
has
right.
happened in the past.
Well, I don't think you are.
Two residents have been
Okay,
at one
In
time
your
on
opinion.
one property,
I got it.
same, and then they split. So now you've got one water line going to both houses, one water sewer line going to both houses.
Why is it a problem for the town? Why is it a problem for the town?
Well, one, you get your water meter, so you get two houses trying to pay one water bill. Then
That's the property owner's issue.
So is the standard 3/4 inch line enough for 2 homes
two
for
homes
water?
be close.
But again, this is the difference between a 50-foot lot, which cannot be split. That's what we're trying to get to. Versus what you're saying to me, I get that. I totally understand that. But when you're dealing with an ADU on small parcels, you're mandating it, right? So on a small parcel, that's an extra cost that they have to pay, which is never gonna split the property. It's always gonna be one ownership.
I think we need to go
It
back.
should never split, but-
It's a 50-foot lot, it can't be split. It doesn't meet the standard of the lot requirements.
So we've had court ordered splits that do not meet the standards for our lot sizes that were ordered by the court.
And 10 years from now, the new planning commission could change that. I mean, who's saying they're not going to?
And I also, when you keep talking about 50-foot lot, they have to meet setback requirements also.
That's a given. That's separate.
But I'm
The separate setbacks are separate from this concern.
problem for the town is, if you split it, if you sell off one of these houses, you could just put in the zoning, each lot, separate lot and home have to have their own sewer and water hookup. So if it's on one lot and they try to connect them, great, that's fine. But if they ever want to separate off and sell the house, then it's a separate house. It has to have its own meter. Well, I mean, then the homeowner has to pay for it.
Yeah.
The buyer or the seller has to pay for it. I mean, I don't get the, I mean, you can put it in on the property because, for example, when you sell a parcel or a house, I sold one on East Shore Drive, not on the sewer. But the title company did check with me because they wanted to make sure it wasn't required to be on the East Shore sewer, and therefore was the tap fee paid, was the whatever paid. I mean, they're responsible for checking that stuff. If you get it in writing and you put it in play, the title companies catch that. And when it sells, they make sure it's done.
Oh, I got to stress too, with all your experience, you have to remember Culver is an 1,100 person town.
All volunteers on everything.
So
You guys are all
a very small town.
So
But you don't separate.
could I
Yeah,
say
yeah.
something?
Yeah.
Member of the Plan Commission, because you all have had really interesting, and in some cases, I have to say, very civil discourse. So, and we're trying to help you. I mean, you kind of came to us with a case, so let us help you. And please adopt a tone that is helpful to
Oh, I'm
us.
sorry. I just said, that's my nature of being. Actually, I am that way.
It's just a tone that's not appreciated.
Totally understood and accept.
So, I was thinking about, and you brought it up, Susie, because we're talking about zoning districts that go outside of town limits, and you could have all kinds of configurations, well, water and septic. On up Academy Road, we're tied into the Academy sewer, which is really the town sewer. We just pay the Academy, and it's the town and a well. So if we're talking about, let's say, and looking at staying with this back page about second structure, single family residence outside the town limits, not going to be connected to town water, not going to be attached to town sewer. So the ordinance would require
Oh, good
another
point.
well and another septic.
I don't have an answer for that right now.
Because if I just read the.
There has been, I was thinking, you're absolutely right. And I was thinking in town.
And then I thought, no, that will become prohibitive. I'm not sure what the point would be. Then the other thing I'm thinking about, well, okay, we've got a structure in place. It's just not currently used for residential purposes, already hooked up. I mean, maybe you got running water, maybe you got a flush toilet in there. But now I want to convert it to the in-law suite. What would we say to that? Would we make them sever that connection and establish a new connection?
So you're talking something attached to the house or?
No, let's say not attached, but already has sewer and water connected to it.
That has
From
access
the-
to sewer and water?
From the main structure. I just want to understand what this would do and maybe not do. This last provision.
To the mother, I know of one in town that did something like that, and I don't know if they're connected or not. So I'd like to hear thoughts on it. It's a good question. It's gonna be an existing house that's gonna be there with water and sewer, well, septic on a parcel. And I'm not saying,
Sure.
and we have to keep in mind too, that there can be multiple lots on a parcel, which is a mess that still needs cleaned up around town quite a bit, but that still exists.
The other thing I'm just going to throw out there is going just looking at this part on page 2. Is this a problem we need to solve now in order to get to the bigger question about living units and ADUs? Do we have to solve it all or live with something that gets an ADU regime in place and then let's see if we.
You mean dial it in, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, because we have been kicking this ADU can down the road for months and months. Do we have to fix every part of it now or establish a regime that everybody can live with about allowing the kind of structure that you brought in and proposed with your clients now several months ago without necessarily addressing this part now? So I think there's all these permutations of different water and sewer connections. What would that cost look like? I think the commission and the council might be interested in that.
So what you're saying is just take that sentence out to keep it moving.
Yeah, that would be, that's one idea that comes to mind. I would not feel, put it this way, I don't think I know enough. And I know we're not voting because it's a work session, but if this were to come before the commission this month or next month, I don't think I would know enough to know how to vote on that provision.
Fair enough.
That, I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
But you also, maybe 2 meetings ago, brought up wanting to do that for an ADU if it was a garage. And we had some debate over that, like, okay, if there's a current garage and it's 5 foot off the property line and you're gonna turn that into an apartment, they're gonna have to have a separate sewer and water hookup. You guys did bring that up. So it is still being addressed. Or,
Well, that was the first point of this sentence.
so that
was
was
to
anything
address
between
that.
this and an ADU. What's it is?
So this is a detached, and I don't even want to call it ADU. I want to call it a detached, just what it is. It's a second single family residence.
So, and is that our distinction that once you go 600 square feet or above, we're just gonna call it a
So-
separate residence?
So I'll go back to Susie said, 600 feet is just a number right
Okay.
now.
But, because I was wondering that too, because we got it's hard to say, second structure, single family residence, and we've got ADUs, which could be residential. So by definition, then, would I read this as an ADU is a structure between 450 and 600 square feet, and a separate single family is one 600 or above 600 square feet?
So I'm just part of that.
Okay.
And just the way I'm thinking right now is, and just thinking about the second standalone structure for single family residence. It's just is where I'm at, and it would be different than an attached, connected accessory dwelling unit. To me, would be connected. Where this, with a different name, is a second structure, single family residence. 600, again, 600 feet is a number. I get the point, how big is a 2-car garage? Or
So are you saying that when it's an existing garage, you're calling that an ADU?
no, take if it's not attached, I kind of want to just
We're changing
separate
from
that
an ADU.
terminology.
We're not calling that an ADU.
Yep, just call it a second.
Changing the name.
So
Okay,
that would be,
got
and that would be a special use for the BZA to design. All this will be a special use.
Standard sizes for two.
Because I don't want, I struggle to try and limit certain, at least how
Okay.
big, maybe a limit on how small, but I struggle with limiting on second structure, how big.
So the delineation is if it's attached or not attached. If it's attached, it's an ADU. If it's not attached, it's now gonna be, because we were calling it an ADU when it was detached, and now we're changing that. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's, I'm just thinking about me right now. It's just more clear.
It's all about you.
Thank you. It's just more clear though to me.
I get it.
So, ChatGPT tells me that a standard 2-car garage ranges from 400 square feet to 576 square feet.
In here in Indiana, they're bigger because people have their,
SUVs,
beyond SUVs, right?
gators and the golf cart.
Their garages are bigger than their houses.
20 by 20, it says, is snug.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve, what I'm understanding from this language is if, that's not the language that I'm accustomed to. An accessory dwelling unit is only an accessory dwelling unit when it's within the existing structure or attached to the existing structure. If it is separated from the existing structure, it is considered a second single-family residence house. Is your intent?
Yes,
Clear?
yeah, just to clarify that, not within, but adjacent to. I don't know if.
Well, an ADU is also within the unit or building. I could build an ADU within an existing structure. That's
It's not gonna be that.
So here's-
That's not what Culver's gonna do, right? You're gonna make it separate.
So what you're saying, I think is people are gonna say, okay, so now you're putting a unit within a unit. Now you have an apartment complex that needs to be R2. That's what we're gonna hear.
That's.
I'll ask you guys if, you know, the people here, I think is gonna say it's apartment.
not if you have to live in that primary residence.
Just think of how the people in Culver will respond.
We're going with also history, and you don't know some of the shady stuff that has happened.
But it's self-evident.
And it's never, and I'm gonna say this
Hmm.
with all kindness, because you're from outside the community. And frequently, when we talk down at the restaurant about the different things that are happening, one of the first comments I get is, well, you know, what's it cost? Who's paying them off? And it really is not a money thing around here. It is just what slides through the crack and happens. It's crap happens and it shouldn't happen and it does, and it's not a payoff. It's just, you would not believe what happens. And we always just turn a blind eye and we let it happen. And then we say, we're going to fix it on the next one. We're going to address it on the next one. But as we talked about at previous meetings, Danny said they would like to stop having people come for every little, you have meetings all the time for the smallest little crap, right? Unless we actually do inspections and follow through, it's going to just keep happening. I mean, it's never going to change. Even creating these ordinances, I don't think, as you just now said, it's all going to be special use. There's still going to be a meeting on every one, right?
But there aren't gonna be, well, we haven't had BZA meeting in 2 months, but
Well, that's a rarity.
it is. But I don't think there's gonna be that many, I just don't see that many requests to come through. Because a lot of them aren't gonna qualify. I mean, it start with, it's not just asking to put the second structure there, it's putting the second structure there within the setbacks. So you have that extra step in there. So I want a second structure, okay, now you have, that's a special use, and the setbacks are gonna be a whole nother part of it. So it's not gonna be that easy just to put these up, and it shouldn't be. I'm gonna go back to what you said about maintaining our neighborhoods and the way they are, keeping Culver.
This is why they want to be in here. They love the look of the community. They love the charm factor. Actually, I was just at a showing and talking with the realtor that was, not a realtor, a contractor who was brought out to give an assessment on the property. And I said, I have to leave. I've got to lock the door. I'm going off to an ADU meeting. And I brought up some of the things we're talking about. And they're just like, well, we've been told no to that before, and that couldn't be done before. And go to the meeting, have some input, see what happens.
Guaranteed, if any form of this goes through, that somebody's gonna say, I wanted that, and why couldn't I have that when I asked for it? I get that all the time. The rules change.
And it's not even necessarily that rules change, things slide by.
Things slide by. I don't know if I'm going down that road now. I'm not sure what all slides by.
Well, I mean, when we catch somebody doing something wrong, you tell them, and then 2 years later, they go ahead and do it. Or they sell the property and the next buyer does exactly what the first buyer was told they couldn't do. Happens all, and we can talk about the properties that we have, happens. Because nobody calls them out on it.
So I'll just speak for what I do is I've had people tear stuff out that they put in on more than one occasion because it wasn't meeting the setbacks. Most of the time it's because they don't meet setbacks.
Okay, I'm talking about like, you're saying, is it an R2? We've talked about this property before, the one behind the bed and breakfast. It was a single family home. The owner got caught when he called for a second meter, that he was turning it into 2 apartments. The town said you can't do that. You can only rent one at a time. Sold it. All the realtors knew, sold it to a new buyer. New buyer rents both apartments at the same time. We know what's going on. Does the town stop them? Does the town call them on it? No. So do we just,
I do when I'm made aware of it. But there are things that absolutely happen that I'm not aware of.
I'm just saying, is it going to continue? How far do you go in putting in ordinances if they're not going to get policed anyways? That's it. I've said that before.
It's a fair comment. It's a fair comment. But, yeah, so back on this. So I've heard so far is second structure, single family residence on that one little paragraph on the back page. Let's take out that sentence first of all. That says this shall have independent water and sewer connections.
Well, now that I understand this is not an ADU, this is not pertaining to an ADU. I get this. Now you're talking about exactly Pam Fisher's property. We're talking about building another home there. So this would say, don't get any ideas. You can't connect to the existing water line and existing sewer line. You got to put a new one in. Now this makes sense.
Okay. Hence a different name for it too.
So that means that an ADU is not a detached structure. That's what I'm,
Yes. Your term was Dadu previously.
that's a detached, right?
So instead of Dadu and ADU, that's, to me, it just sounds better to have a second structure as a single family residence. Now, size. Yeah, try that.
Well, then it goes back to your garage issue, because one of the issues was, I thought this whole thing started because people who have garages who would like to utilize the space above, you wanted to make it possible.
Or it without it being above, transform it into.
But, and during that process, you talked about, well, what was your intent? Is it, you really think people are going to rent their garage apartments out to year-round renters? Or is it so that their grandkids have a place to stay when all the family's home? Or to do it on an occasional academy weekend to make some money to offset their expenses? Well, if that's the case, then forcing a sewer and water separate hookup is not something that, you know, my mom or dad would have been able to do financially. If it was just to offset their expenses and help bring in a little revenue. Now, if you're saying, no, we want to see more garages turned into year-round apartments. We want to see 12-month leases on those apartments. Okay, then I get that. That's why you're saying, you know, put 12,000, 15,000 into sewer and water. I got that.
So by calling it a residence, we get away from calling it an accessory structure. So hence it's like a 16-foot maximum height accessory structure isn't applicable anymore. And you can build it up to the same height as another structure. So it's a residence, it's not an accessory structure. So we could keep our accessory structures at their 16 foot. And if someone needs to go, whatever, pick a number, 24 feet, so they could have a garage, a nice apartment over the garage where they don't have to walk hunched over, worried about hitting their head on the ceiling, we could do that.
But that's a second structure, single family residence in a garage.
Yeah, we'll say build one over a garage. Yeah. Just as an example of something, it could be ground level, but if you build it over a garage, you could build it tall enough to have your garage and still have that
You're talking,
residents above it.
you're talking 22 feet, you're talking about bumping it up to 22 feet?
No, because right now it'd be whatever, it goes up to 35 feet for in our ordinance. So it wouldn't restrict somebody so much for their garage. Anything really, we could get really start, the reason is just that, so it's the same as any other residential structure. The district and the standards are.
Okay, so going back when Chester was here, I think Chester was Chester's on this group, right?
Yes,
I think Chester was here, I'm not sure if you guys were here or not. And the 35-foot got brought up, and I am not a proponent of that. Because it's going to be 35 foot tall on little 50-foot lots. And the garage might currently be 5 foot off the property line, because it's already there. You're saying you would allow that now with this wording. And some garages are on the property line. They could do this and go up to 35 foot.
as this is written, yes. So I think that gets back to a comment that Don made is, do we want to dial that in? Is that something that we dial in at a different time? It's a good point,
I
but
was looking at South Bend's ordinance, and South Bend's ordinance allows, they still use the ADU terminology, but up to the same height as otherwise allowed in the district.
So, I'm gonna go back to the person who has to read the planning code and design to it for different individuals who have different intents of what they're trying to achieve on the communities. This is getting really murky. If I was to sit down and try to work through this and say to them, this is what we can, I have no clue what I really can or cannot do. Why? It's going to the BZA. It's subjective. You'll determine what it is, whatever it is, how it is. So I'm representing them. Their investment to achieve, to try to find out what they're going to do could be lost like that. It's, if it's you, any one of us. So I find this to be really murky, non-definitive, subjective. And what I was trying to bring forth is trying to be clarity. And that you could say, well, I understand of language that's been used in multiple jurisdictions. ADUs is an accessory dwelling unit. That's the term of it. Then they went to a DADU. Why? Because they made it more specific, saying detached versus attached or within the unit. It can actually be within a house. You can split up a house and break it into a primary residence, an accessory dwelling residence in that unit. So keeping, for me, at least as a person who works with this to design something, to build something, that the language should be much clearer. And you could say a DADU, which goes back to the potentiality of garages that can be converted either as a garage, no second story addition, they're just converting their garage into, they might extend it if it's within setbacks, because the setbacks limit what we can do. Those are objective, they're definitive. So if we've got more space in that setback, I can extend that garage. I can make it longer. That's a structural condition, buildability. All right, so you can keep it on the ground floor, as long as you don't have in your ordinance that says you have to have covered parking. That's what does that. If you have parking on your property, remember, you have to have parking spaces. If you have it on your property, it doesn't say it has to be covered, then you can convert that garage into a living unit if it's permissible. If you want to go up and build on top of your garage, and you can cantilever off of that, there's structurally, as long as it's within the setbacks, I can cantilever off of it to get more area above from that footprint, structurally speaking. Okay, as long as I'm within my setbacks to do that. Then in the data, you say, okay, back to Susie, what you're saying, that 35 foot, I agree with you, unless your insurance contacts is 35 feet should be reduced in these conditions. I submitted a diagram that said, based upon roof pitches, you have to think about roof pitches, right? It's aesthetics, depending on the roof pitch. Not whether it's necessary, it's about the aesthetics of a roof pitch. And I came up to a number potentially of 26 being the max. I said to myself, I can make this work spatially for people, structurally for people, form-wise for the community based upon roof structures, right? Whether it's more steep or more shallow. That seemed to me to be the maximum to keep below that 35 feet. Could be lower too, right? In terms of your section, right? The floor structure, ceiling heights. That seemed reasonable in a dadu that's being built, especially in the smaller properties, so that height doesn't get enormous for people. This would be back to the 35 based upon your single family requirements or a lot of limits. I find that to be for your community problematic.
So, all due respect, that didn't help clear up the murkiness for me.
It did by saying about when you did
But
the
with-
detached one into a single family, that's what that does.
I'll finish my sentence.
Okay.
With that is the reason we've already got these standards set for the community for residences. So that's why why I put this in here. We have standards already set in our ordinances. That was my intent. What do you think, Don?
I'm ready. I do like, for just definitional purposes, I do like the idea of going to, accessory dwelling units and detached accessory dwelling units. That makes it, I think, pretty clear, like which one's which. And so I think you're saying, we're trying to say that when we're talking about detached, then it would be subject to all the above requirements. And then in addition to, as at least as we've drafted it here, it would be minimum 600 square feet. Is that right? So far?
Yes.
Okay. And then up for consideration is, or tabling is the separate connection. Particularly, we're talking about small lots where it's like, it's not possible for it to be separate. Except by bribing you and you're not bribing.
Well.
You'd have 50 enough for you to leave the country permanently.
Yeah,
You're not gonna-
and then some. And then just to add to that too, is the 600 square feet is just, again, a number in there.
Can I throw another thing at you to consider? You talk about parking. I hope you do a little more detail on that. For example, the property on South Main Street, 521 South Main Street, that is, Don might remember it as close to Pam Baker's old office, which is now listing lien there, South Main Street. I'm talking about Don. I think both these guys are gonna know. And about 2 houses back is a house with a little open porch on the west side. So it's 2 houses back, and it has concrete front yard. Does that ring a bell? How unattractive that is. That is a house I own, by the way. But well, I bought it for one of my employees. But when that went in, you don't have anything that says you can't slap concrete down for the front yard. Would you not all agree that is very unattractive?
The only
I
thing
don't
we
know
would,
how we ever allowed that.
the only thing we would have is the 50% impervious
That's what I was.
surface
thinking.
limit,
Yeah.
where that would come into
So you
play.
couldn't pave it unless you're within that.
Well, you could do it on the front. What if there's plenty of green space in back?
You're
I'm
absolutely
just saying
right.
you're gonna
You do it.
Which on that property,
Because
it's probably right.
Yeah.
You-
So we're gonna be really changing the look because it's gonna be parking, they're gonna be. I just think I couldn't believe when I saw, when the concrete got poured. So there is a garage over there. Now that garage sits on the property line, which is another reason I speak of. building up 35 feet when some of these structures are on the property line already. I would not be the neighbor next door if I
So-
decided to build up on it.
But you can't build up on top of it. At that, if it's on the property line, whatever's built on top of has to be set back.
No,
So-
because we're talking about existing. We talked about
No,
this.
but the exist, but I'm
This
just
is,
trying
this
to,
is an existing.
right,
one.
so if you have an existing structure on the property line, right, let's go to the garage, and it's on the property line. First thing, if you would have built on top, whatever is built on top has to meet the new setback. Right, so that has to be at least, we'll call it 5 feet away from the property line. You can't go straight up that property line. That's standard planning rules that I've ever. And you cannot even put an opening into that wall. So that would be a solid wall. You never could put a window into that. So you're good there. And you can't go straight up.
Is that what you guys were understanding, that an existing structure, they can't go up,
It's gotta be, meet the setback,
Step back.
but an existing structure,
still has to meet before you can build onto it.
So if it's not,
to build on, but if it was on the, if it's against code right now and it's on the property line, but it's 15, let's say it's 25 foot tall, you could go ahead and finish it out as an apartment. If it's tall enough.
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay,
but you can't put any opening in that wall.
but if it has, to go back to that just a little bit more, if it's only 1 story tall and you want to put a second story on, so it's legal non-conformance that sets, because for whatever reason it was grandfathered in, you would be adding to the non-conformance, so you'd have to have a variance to go up.
If you went straight up, but if you set back, you would need the variance.
If it's within the setbacks.
No, I said, if the existing structure down below is on the property line, now I'm adding it on top of it. If I build back that wall of the new structure on the second story to the setback, does that need a variance?
It's never came up before. The short answer would be, as long as it's overhanging the entire part of that structure is within the setback, it should be, no, it doesn't need a variance. That's a complicated one.
I've done ones like that. That's why I have that experience.
okay, I've got another question. We've covered so much ground and we realize everything is still going to have to go before you guys. Right? It's all going to have to go before you guys. It almost seems like anything we're talking about is really hard to nail down because everything has an issue. And everything's going to go before you anyways. So do you still really want to move forward and try to create some zoning? But it all has to go before you every time anyways? Are you creating bigger problem?
But right now, you can't even do this because that's what I brought at the beginning, was because of the way the zone is structured, goes to R2. So there's got to be something in there. You could create it as a conditional use by doing that. Here's the description. It is a permitted conditional, it's not permitted by right, meaning that you don't have to go in front of it, but it's a conditional use. Okay, but at least the criteria is there saying you can do this. However, it's conditional. What does that conditional mean? But there's at least some guidelines that someone's putting something together saying, I have met all these general guidelines that I now can submit for a conditional use to get approval, whatever feedback comes back of the adjustments, to go ahead and do that structure. That's conditional use. But you still need to have that criteria to base everything on. And I would say the 650 feet goes back to yours, Susie, which was, and back to the garage size. If a garage typically, we'll say these older garages, 400, 500 square feet, well, that means you can't convert your garage into detached dad. So I go back to saying, no, the 450 square feet as a minimum And then you also have to set a maximum. And I'm advocating you set a maximum for those. Because otherwise things start happening. That's back to a single family residence house, which is not its intent. So then you have to set a maximum saying, oh, is it 1,000 square feet? That's a good number, by the way, from what I've worked on. Instead of do 600 square feet, 450 square feet, but there's people with certain programs that goes up to 1,000 square feet to make these for what they're looking for and want to use it for. It varies that way, but you need to set a maximum as well. Not let that just be open. Otherwise, you're going to get this potentially bulk, forms being built that you won't want.
Well, we have close to 6 o'clock, so I'd just like to hear some final thoughts so I can put some more together. I'm a little more. Like every time we get together, I get a little more confused.
We really didn't get to go through everything, but, I think that, a lot of discussion here and a lot of things to absorb. A lot of ideas. I agree with the 35 feet. I think that's a little bit excessive for that, to be able to go up to 35, but
It works in really dense, we'll call it bigger municipality communities because it's about area. But this is not that. It's like why I'm advocating to shrink it for you, because it's not part of your organism that you have here as a typology.
So a good ratio of footprint to maximum height where it could guide us.
It's really section. In other words, what I mean by section, form-wise, think of a form, you're just cut through it, right? And so it's about height in your spaces, like right now we're in the floor structure, the next level, which saying this is a 2-story structure max. You can do a vaulted ceiling, which gives you more height in the top one. It's more expensive structure to build, but that's why when I did the diagram, I went from 24 to 26, and 26 said was the maximum with a pitched gable roof of a nice form, depending on who, someone who wants. After that, you could potentially on 35 means I could build a 3-story building.
We could.
Okay, that's what that is.
Yeah, which I don't think we want.
You don't want it. Love to design it, but you don't want it. I could have a tower, basically.
Dan, I had a question for you in terms of like GZA. So is this for special uses? Is that going to go in front of you guys? Yeah, the point one of you made is then what's the point? And on what basis would you say no? We got an ordinance that allows it.
good question.
I mean, should we just try to draft an ordinance that's like, thank you very much, here's your permit?
Or does that you not need a special use is what you're saying?
Yeah, like what's the point of special use? We drafted an ordinance that buttons things up well enough, setting aside this
What do
separate
you think, Steve?
water and Steve sewer connection for now.
It some may not like it, but it feels to me like we just need a new zoning district. We have an R1 and we have an R2, R1.5 somewhere in the middle where we could just put all this in. It's hard to pile it all into R1 without it getting a little
But
foggy.
everything in the town has potential to become R 1.5, and I mean, everything. I mean,
Well, you still have to meet, if you're gonna go detached, you still have to meet setbacks though. So it's not every property that would be. Again, I've had that was my kind of thinking about this generally, and that's why I took the dive into the South Bend ordinance. They don't do that. They just they just provide for it within the various types of zoning.
Well, their ordinances are very well written up there.
We've got nice diagrams. So-
They do.
Yeah, that's what I wonder. I mean,
You got a point. You know,
because if, again, thinking about one of the reasons that we're doing this is because, well, okay, people are doing it anyway. But the comprehensive plan calls upon us to develop a variety of housing and denser housing, particularly within the R1 area. So why would we necessarily want to then? I mean, going back to your clients originally, we just didn't have the period.
It was that, right, so you.
Yeah, so this, to me, this is like about, it's a good start. It's about 10% solution, I suppose. Let's just do it and be done with it.
Can I ask you to do one more thing? You just said something. You just said comprehensive plan is asking you to create denser housing.
Right.
The town was platted on 50 and 60-foot lots. And then, I think it was during the time, in the last time they were buying the cafe, I think it was then, that they decided to change it and say, we're going to increase lot sizes to reduce density in town.
Mhm.
If you create a new lot, it's going to have to be 75 foot. Why don't we just go back to 50 and 60-foot lots? I mean, why don't we just,
So
why?
between you being and the rest of us, I asked myself that same question. I just think that's another conversation for another day. Because you could not recreate Forest Place today. You couldn't do it. I mean, it'd have to be PDU or something, but because of lot size and stuff,
Yeah,
no, you couldn't do it.
But I mean,
But
it-
it's a lovely, desirable place to live.
but it fits what, I mean, the town is 50 and 60 foot.
Yeah.
And you even said, we want to increase density.
Yeah.
Go back to what we were. Get rid of this change that we made as a town of 75 foot and put it back to, so some people have joined lots together, have taken 3 lots that I'm going together. Now they can only create 2 if they ever want to divide them. They cannot divide them back into 3, even though they were 3 to start with. I don't know if you guys realize that. Which made no sense, but they wanted to reduce density. But now it sounds like you're actually wanting to increase.
That's what the comprehensive plan calls on funds to do.
It'd be a simple.
Yeah.
Simple fix.
It wouldn't get us though, this would still be necessary for the
Right, but it brings lot
Residential.
sizes back to what they were
Yeah.
platted, and people don't use yards like they used to anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see swing sets in the backyard, you don't see swimming pools in the backyard. Kids are on their computers.
Yeah.
Everybody wants.
And again, I don't disagree with it.
Okay, just a thought.
Yeah.
And to address your issue of that, the idea of the concrete in the front, step back. That is actually, again, an easy one to do. It's called percentage. How much permeable, impermeable pavement can be within that front setback area to limit it to basically a, 18-foot driveway width, but not to allow it to all be.
They have that, they just don't have it by area. You just have it for the lot, right?
correct.
Maybe
That's right.
per area would be a better street sign.
It's just about the, right, you
Yeah.
have to, and that is how it gets, right, but that's a good one to, not that to occur, because if you have to take advantage of it, you would, just, if you have no choice and it allows it, you take advantage of it.
Jerry, you haven't said much.
Take it all in.
Here's some notes I wrote. So this is just gonna be short. I'm gonna go down kind of real briefly, but parking, an issue, it's on the front side. An issue, max height 26 feet. And I think mostly what I heard was instead of a different ordinance to make this part of the regular building code or a part of our regular ordinance, and that it's not a special use, it's a permitted use.
I don't know what I am. One of the other things was also, we talked about having their minimum square footage at 450. I think somebody threw out the idea of maximum. square footage of 1,000.
For an ADU.
Yeah.
I mean, I like 1,200, but that's pushing it, but 1,000.
Housing gives you a decent
Yeah.
two-bedroom apartment
It does,
with kitchen.
yeah, and a good living area.
Yeah.
Then the question, I just thought that's interesting. Then the question, what happens is if it's on the second floor, it's the stair. How is that looked at as in terms of the square footage? You see, so if you have 1,000 square feet, now I gotta put a stair in that's going from the ground up to it. Is that considered part of the square footage? That's it. I mean, it's an inch because it's non-usable. It's
I defer
Yeah.
to our board.
it's a tough one in terms of that number.
It sounds like higher math to me.
It is higher math. And technically, right now, it's a structure by definition, so it would count towards it.
Right, so that's where it comes out of that usable square footage, is what when it comes to that floor plane, it's coming out of it. But if you put it on the outside, without being inside the building, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Just let, this is not
Yeah.
a.
Did I miss anything else? As far as notes, 450 to 1,000, 26 foot. Permitted use versus special use.
Mhm.
I don't know how to quite write that, but steps counting, not counting towards square footage if they're outside.
Well, that automatically would never count because it's outside. But it's when it's inside, it takes away from that usable area.
Well, they do count now outside too. When somebody builds a deck and you put steps up to that deck, that's structural.
But that's that's not, okay, so we have to be clear about that because that is about permeable, impermeable surface. I wouldn't consider that's not considered in terms of the actual conditioned. Think about it this way then, conditioned area, use that word. Because if it's outside, it's not conditioned. Otherwise, you're.
Not heated or cool, is what you're referring to.
What's that?
You're referring to like not heated or cool.
Yes, unconditioned. So if it's unconditioned, it's not considered part of the maximum square footage. If it's conditioned, then it would be. That means an internal stair that's part of the structure.
We could just say excluding stairs.
That'd be good because it gives you a little bit more flexibility of usage for people.
Steve, I'm willing to help you do a revision. I've been making a bunch of notes here too.
I'll send you something.
Yeah, or if you just want to send me a Word document.
I'll send you a Word document.
Okay.
It'll be next week.
Yeah, well, you can send me what you got right now. If you don't mind me.
Oh, you can't read this.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my own on here.
Okay,
If you send me
this document,
that Word document, I'll plug some stuff in and track changes and send it back to you.
okay,
We'll see what we think about it.
good. I appreciate that a lot. Okay, so anything else before we wrap up? I gotta go to my granddaughter's 13th
Oh, wow.
birthday.
Wow. Oldest?
Yeah, she's my oldest grade.
Wow.
Good job.
13 is a new 21.
Yeah. At least 18.
Spam. I'm getting slammed with spam. Okay, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll send something out between Don and I when we get other stuff done.
Thanks for allowing.
And
public
it's
input.
been 8
You
months.
don't have to. So
I
thank you.
think so. It's been a while.
We need it.
We gotta fix this.
We need it.
I can say from like information I'm getting from, let's say, the private sector, there's a lot of